Well, hi and welcome to DVD 2. You remember going through the DVD 1 that we took some live trades, and what I'm going to do in a moment is pop up those contract notes so you can see, obviously see those trades were taken and in what order and what actually happened. But I've written them up on a board here so they'll be nice and easy for you to see. Now we actually had a total of 7 trades, basically going over what I'd covered so far. In other words, what I explained to you so far, the process. Using some of that information, we've netted out with 116 pips over 7 trades. You can see we had a plus 26, plus 36, minus 17, minus 20, plus 23, plus 25, plus 43, total for a total of net of 116. Now I hasten to add something about these trades here. Generally speaking, I'm not trading for these small numbers of pips. Now, I consider these small numbers of pips. I know they've added up to 116 pips, and that's great, that's fine. It's only 7 trades. It didn't take too long. But I was trading through this period, a period of manipulation, the manipulation period. Now, the reason I was doing that was because, well, basically, I needed to produce results fairly quickly for the DVD. In other words, I couldn't go on and run things, throughout the whole day, 8 and 9 hour trades, 10 hour trades, when really I could have been putting on trades for longer positions, taking many more pips. I could have been compounding on those and come out with hundreds of pips, many hundreds of pips on individual moves. Now, that's what we'll get to. We'll be covering that on there. But for this point, I wanted to show you that it is possible to trade through the manipulation period. It's not the easiest of time to trade through the manipulation period because by the very nature of the fact the market is being manipulated. But I did this because I wanted to show you the acid test, as it were. Look, this is what I'm telling you, and this is the result of that on there. Okay, so total 7 trades, net 116 pips. Now, I've got some other notes up, things down here. Trading decisions. I want to talk about the trading decisions I took. Obviously, I had to decide on when to buy the market or sell the market. I had to decide on where to put my stop loss orders, and ultimately had to decide on where I took that profit or closed that trade off. And there was the indicators that were through those periods. So what indicators did I use? But first off, just let's talk about those trading decisions. And what I want you to take away from this and these results down here, that these trading decisions as such were not given to me by, let's say, a particular bar or a particular thing on my software or on any software as the case may be. Because remember, I've said this before, that the PAT software is a trading tool. It's a tool to do a specific job. Not the only tool, I'm sure. There are other traders who can do this, trade the 3 phases of the market makers by using traditional software if that's what they want to do and they're comfortable doing that. But what I want you to get away from is the fact that there is an indicator, an individual bar, a moving average, or anything that will tell you that this is the time to buy. That's absolute fallacy, and if you get involved in that, you're going to be caught up with the market maker's process. You're going to be their profit. They're going to be emptying your account because you're going to be using the standardized indicators, the standardized bars, the standard names, all this sort of stuff that they know about and have total access to. So my trading decisions were based purely upon the fact of where in the cycle was the market. Accumulation, manipulation, profit release. Where was it? In this particular time, going through these trades, I was trading through a manipulation period. And like I say, the manipulation period is not the easiest to trade through by the very nature of what it does. But gradually over time, you'll come to understand that. And sometimes it's a bit of a gift, really. You can see that manipulation and you can say, okay, well, I'll just take 30 pips out of that or 40 pips out of that and I might call it a day or whatever. But gradually that will come with a period of skill. As skill builds up. Okay, so my trading decisions were dictated by the cycle of the market, the phase that the market makers were in at that point. My indicator, well, again, I've just touched on this, indicator being this bar here or that bar there. Now, we'll get to some specific things in my software that will enable you to read the market a lot easier, but again, nothing there that says this is an indicator to do this and this is what produced this and this what produced this and this indicator produced this. It was all centered on that phase of the market. My reasons for taking this trade were based, again, coming right back in to the phase of the market was in, and whether I wanted to trade through a manipulation period, in which case this time I did, because I wanted to produce those results fairly quickly for the DVD. And finally, my outcomes were dictated not by the decisions I made as such. Now, this has got I think, to get your head around. The outcomes of the trade, the winning trades, were not made by my decision to trade there and then. Now, of course, there's a contradiction in there, because yes, I made the decision to act at that point, but really, my decision was only based upon the market maker's decision. The market maker's decision to move the market in that given direction. So my decision, it's important that you get this distinction. My decision was the limpet on the side. I was just tagged on to the side. There's their decision going this way anyway, and I'm sort of tagged on to that, and I go with that. My job was only to identify where in the phase the market was. In this case, it was in the manipulation phase, and at that point then, to just watch that manipulation, to work out where that manipulation was going to go to, and then where it was going to turn, and then I was just literally going to join onto the side of it and then go with the market maker. I am not saying I'm some sort of clever guru that I can look at a market and say, oh, that's where to go based on my interpretation. No. I simply attach myself like a limpet to their activity. Okay, so that's about winning. That was great, that's fine, and that was all very good. And let's just now get on and have a look on how to lose. You know, I think possibly one of the most valuable lessons I learned as a trader in my early years, when I started to get this, when I started to understand what was really going on here, the three phases, accumulation, manipulation, profit release. Once I started to understand that, and once they started to become more clear, let us say, because when I first got this, it was a bit like misty stuff. It was like you're looking through, there's a mist there, there's something there, but you just can't find it. And then it took months and months of work to clear that mist and understand it and bring it down to something that's very clear, total clarity about what you're seeing and what you're doing. And one of the things, obviously, going through that, obviously I was I was winning and I was losing, I was winning, I was losing, and gradually that was changing. So it was much more winning, much more, and then winning very big, and then losing very little. And so the whole process sort of went on this sort of curve, this equity curve, if you like, going up like this. But during that time, obviously there were losses. And one of the most important things I learned is how to lose. I had to really question that, because let's face it, nobody likes to lose. People may say, oh, your losses are on the way to getting the wins. But it doesn't really cut any ice, because nobody likes to lose. So what we need is a specific set of losing rules, and some of them are in here, but we do need a specific set of losing rules. Now, first off, it's totally normal. Don't try and eradicate from your trading the sense of loss, or something that you will feel as a sense of loss, because let's face it, it's a very, very real thing. Loss avoidance. We don't want to lose anything, whether it might be down to our wallet losing anything, or we don't want to have a deal with somebody or do something. You can even get to an argument point. There's a point where you have an argument and you don't want to lose the argument, even though if you're wrong and you shouldn't be defending your position, you don't want to. So loss avoidance is a whole wide spectrum, and something that we need to really consider when we're trading. Okay, so accept that is totally natural. Word association. Now, I've got this up here because I hear so many traders talk about, oh, my stop was hit. And they use like these painful words as if it's inflicting some sort of personal injury, and in many cases it is, because the reason it inflicts the personal feeling is because when you don't know. It's when you take a loss and you don't know. You think you know. Okay, it stopped me out. You think you know because it's gone against your system, whatever, but you don't really know. If you really knew why you'd been stopped out, in other words, if you knew that, okay, I actually attached myself at the wrong stage of the phase here, but I can actually see where that phase is now, you won't feel the same about that loss. It won't be that. It'll be a loss, and it'll be really a further amount of information that you can then carry forward. Okay, so what's your word associations? It's nothing to do with getting hit or beat up, and the market's beating me up again, and that sort of thing up there. Acceptance. You've got to accept the fact that you are going to attach yourself at the wrong point. So you are going to be stopped out. You are going to encounter losses. This is not you personally. Don't take it personally. It's the market maker is going off on a route. You may attach yourself at that. As the market goes off in this particular direction, the market maker sees that there are some more stops to be picked up. Somebody else has come in with a big order. There's a big stop loss down there, and the market will run off quickly down, pick those up, and then the market goes away. So again, don't take this personal. Use the loss. Use this loss to your great advantage. If you don't sort of lick your wounds, as it were, and say, okay, well, I was stopped out on this particular trade. Why was I stopped out? Well, not because your stop was just, don't think, oh, I should have had a bigger stop, or oh, my stop was in the wrong position there, or all that sort of thing. Because it's easy to look at the chart and say, oh, if I just had my stop down there, then the market wouldn't have done that and it would have gone off. That is looking from the outside in. You need to be saying, okay, well, I had my stop there, I was stopped out there, why was I stopped out? Okay, well, there's the phase, accumulation, manipulation, okay, profit release cycle. Okay, well, I can see what's happened here. There was actually another leg of manipulation here. Then we're going to profit release. Right, now I can see why I got stopped out. Now you have complete understanding, you're educating yourself, your mind's feeling comfortable about that, and then you'll be free to then move on and trade and get yourself attached to that market maker model. And finally, I've got in here creating a chair. A little bit off on there. I'm not a carpenter, by the way, but creating a chair. And the reason I put this on, just to remind me and to tell you, explain a little thing to you here, that, if I said to you, I want you to create a chair. Now, regardless of whether you were a good carpenter or a bad carpenter, I presume, pretty much you could knock it up out an old bit of wood or whatever, but you could create this chair and it would be a finished thing. And it might only be, a very uncomfortable chair, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But you create this chair. Now, once it's created, so you put your energy into it, you've created the chair, there sits the chair. Your trading needs to be treated in the same way. The chair is an individual creation. You created it, but it becomes individual from you. It becomes separate from you. You're not connected to that anymore. And this is exactly the same what I want you to do with your trading. When you put a trade on, that position, you enter that position into the market, it exists as a creation separate of you. You don't become attached to it on a personal thing, a personal level whatsoever. You're just making this as a creative act. There's your creative act. That's my act. That's my limping onto the market maker's model at that point there, and it exists separate of you. You're only there really to monitor it on there. So don't get dragged in and it's like permanently being sitting on a chair or permanently making the chair and never finishing it. This is separate from you, a separate creation, and each trade has to be treated in that way. Okay, you need and also next we're going to talk about the required mindset. Okay, now the required mindset is such an important thing, because people say, well, you got to keep positive and all this sort of stuff, and you got to switch your emotions off and turn your mind off to all this sort of stuff. And actually, that's not the case. What we need to do, because as market maker traders, in other words, we're trading the accumulation, manipulation, profit release. We're trading those three. We're not trading those three phases, but we're trading that model, the market maker's model of the market. What we need to do is to ignore the live price. Now that may seem like a contradiction, and to I suppose it is a little bit, because you're looking at the live price, and the live price is the last price that's on the chart. You can see it's flicking around. In our case it's a blue line. We're flicking around, and we can see that live price constantly changing on there. Now, a lot of traders will become focused in. They'll be drawn in to the live price. They'll be watching this flicking around, especially if they've entered the market and the stop loss is down here, say, and the live price is flicking there and flicking this and flicking this. So that the live price becomes almost like an emotional barometer for the trader. As he gets a little bit closer to his stop, he feels a little bit more tense, and it goes away. He feels a little bit more relief, and so becomes sucked in to this emotional contact on this live price. This is why we actually have one click button in PAT software actually to turn that off, so you can just look at what really matters. But you do need it sometimes, obviously, to look at your trades, but generally we need to be ignoring the live price. Certainly on a mental level we need to be ignoring the live price. And the second thing is we need to become detached from the facade. This is such an important thing, because when you're looking at a chart, which we now know we've got the facade here, which is the front edge, which is the candle, the shapes, and all the things that you're looking at there. If you're focusing on this here, you're not focusing on this here. We want to focus on the market maker's business model behind what's going on, what stage are they in accumulation phase? Are they in a manipulation phase? Are they in a profit release phase? That's what we need to know. And where are they going? So if they're in manipulation, when is that profit release phase going to come? If they're in accumulation, when is the manipulation going to start? How can we see that? How can we follow that through? So if we're stuck on the facade here, we're not going to see any of this, the real stuff that's going on behind. So whilst we look at the facade, we see the facade, we are always asking the question, what's behind here? We're not becoming anchored into this. We detach ourselves from the facade and we focus on the bit behind. Now, I've got down here connected to the box. What do I mean by that? Well, you remember, should have actually drawn a little box in there, shouldn't I, on that? You remember a little accumulation area, which I said to you, which a lot of people will call a congestion area, which is wrong. This is an accumulation area, and this is our box. Remember, I said when I referred to the box, you'll remember about that. Connected to the box. Why do I want you to stay connected to the box? Or why should you stay connected to the box? Well, remember that everything starts from the box. All the accumulation starts. If the market makers are going to move this market higher, they will be accumulating buys in this area. If the market makers are going to take the market lower, they will be accumulating sell orders in this area here. So by keeping ourselves connected as to what was connected to the box, we maintain a connection with their first phase. Now, so in other words, we see the market going off in a certain direction, which may be in the manipulation stage when it goes straight into manipulation. By keeping ourselves focused on the box, we can be always asking the question, what was in the box? The subsequent activity that comes out of here needs to answer the question, what was in the box? Because remember this, once we know the contents of the box, we make money exactly the same way that the market makers make money. We make money by default. So our only job as a trader, when you're trading these three phases, accumulation, manipulation, profit release, when you're trading the market maker's business model, your only concern is what is in the box. And when you think about that, that's such a powerful thing for you as a trader to understand. If you can just focus all your energy on working out what is in this box, accumulation of buys or accumulation of sells. Accumulation of buys, we know it's default move up. Accumulation of sells, default move down. Can you imagine the power that gives you as a trader, that you've got this singular point of focus to work out what is there. So we stay connected to the box. Okay. Now, how do you stay connected to the box? Very important. So you stay connected by asking questions. Ask questions. How is money going to be made? By looking at the box and asking yourself that question, how is money going to be made? Not by you. Remember this, not by you. You don't come into this. How is money going to be made? How is the market maker going to make money from this period here? How is he going to do that? By asking that question, you will be keeping yourself connected into this box in here. Another question to ask is, what would the market maker not want to happen? Think about that. What would the market makers not want to happen? Clearly, they'd not want the market to go against their position on here. So they'll be guarded that beliefs aren't created in that opposing direction. An example, supposing they've been accumulating buy orders, ready in anticipation for the market to be moved up, and they will sell into that rise and release their profits. What they don't want to do is they don't want to create beliefs. They do at a certain point, obviously through the manipulation process, they want to create negative sort of oscillating beliefs, if you like, so they can accumulate. But once that's sort of set, they certainly don't want through this period to create beliefs in the market might be going down, because that will not encourage people to buy. So they don't want to do anything in there that's going to challenge their ultimate outcome destination. So ask the question, what would the market makers not want to happen? And observe what that might look like on a chart. Think about that. How would that action look like on a chart, what they might not want to do? So by asking those two questions, you can keep yourself connected right into the box. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is learning how to recognize this. How do you recognize these things that you want to see, these phases that you want to look at? Okay, now recognition is an interesting topic here, because what have we got drawn up on here? If we look at this, if we look at this here, we can see we've got a circle here, okay, and here we've got a sort of circle but with a bit missing, missing here, and then here we've got some curved lines, some gaps and some dashes, and here we've got a little, what is in effect a small circle. Now when we actually look at those, if I actually covered this one off here, and then we covered this one off here, and we're only left with this one here, that's all we could actually see, this one here, could we say it's a circle? We could. Why? Because we can see the form that it takes. Okay, we can see the form that it takes. We can see that that is roughly the shape of a circle, and so our mind will literally fill in the gaps as we go around, and so our mind creates this. Now, the problem with this, of course, is twofold, because obviously if you're looking at chart patterns and just reading the facade and you see a pattern and it sort of matches a pattern last week that did something, you think, oh, that's that pattern that did last week, oh, that's now a sell. You're in trouble, because you cannot carry that forward, if you like. You can't take that forward to then trade, because we're talking about different set of circumstances. It may well be that in the accumulation, manipulation and profit release, we're nowhere near in the same cycle. There's nothing there in the same cycle at all. Okay, so this comes back down to form and content. Okay, form and content. Which is the form, which is the content. And we want to look at the content. So by looking at the market, we want recognition of what? We want recognition of what? We don't want recognition of the form. So we don't want recognition just to see the circles on. We want to see recognition of the content. Okay, I assume you could easily fill that word in there. We want recognition of the content, not the form that the chart actually takes. So that's constantly, how do we do that? We do that by being connected to the box and looking at the content of how the market maker's business model is unfolding at this time. Okay, and then of course we have, when to trade. When do you trade? When do you actually take that trade? Well, you can only trade, if you're trading the market maker's business model, you can only trade when you have a sense of knowing. Now the sense of knowing is, it comes to when you're watching the box, you're watching the manipulation, you're watching how the market comes out, and you're not seeing a market pattern as such, but you're suddenly realising a sense of knowing, I can see the game plan. I can see how the market maker is going to make money from this accumulation area. I can see that. So at that point, you are able to take a trade, not based on a chart pattern, but on that sense of knowing. So where does a sense of knowing come from? Where does it actually come out of you from? Again, we come back to our form versus content. If we think about our form, we're just looking at the chart surface, and that could match exactly the same form that we saw a week ago, or something 2 days ago, or yesterday we could see. But by looking at the content, we remain connected. And so we look at the content, we're working out what's going behind, and this will give us gradually as things goes on, as your training becomes more, as your skill becomes more, you will just look at a market and see, right, I know what phase that market's in, and if it's in that phase now, I know the next phase it's going to go to. I'll look for this bit of manipulation period. Okay, I now see that. Okay, right, got the story, and now you're going to enter the trade, and now you're going to make money by default. So that sense of knowing is when you start to recognise not the form, you recognise the content, and that's how you get that sense of knowing on there. So that now brings us on to beliefs, which is really the whole sort of everything's encountered into beliefs. Because if you think about this, you can't do anything until you have a belief. Now, I want to say anything at all. I'll clarify that a little bit for you in a moment. But basically, we're driven by beliefs. We're driven. You're watching these DVDs because you believe that as a result of these DVDs, you can make money in the market, and that's true. That's true. This is going to happen. But you've got to have that belief before you can progress and go forward. You have to have that belief before you actually could buy these DVDs, for example. Okay, so price versus belief. All right. Now, let's take a very, very simple task like crossing the road. We may think that's nice and easy. We go up to the curb and we cross the road and that's it. But let's analyse crossing the road. We walk up to the edge of the curb, and we're standing there, and the traffic's coming backwards and forwards, and it might be a big highway, whatever. But we have to get across that road. We will be unable to do something until something happens in us, and that something is given birth to a belief. The belief that we can make it to the other side, or at least to the central reservation. Let's say there's a halfway point. At least we believe we can get across there. Now, if we could be standing on a public crossing area and still standing there and unable to move. We see the traffic coming until we create that belief. So at the point of creating the belief, we can cross the road. We can then take that step and literally go across the road. Now, take a little example of this and understand how beliefs work as well on the masses. I'm sure you've been in this situation. You're standing on the side of the road, you're waiting to cross. Traffic's going up and down, up and down. There's loads of other people there beside you and they're waiting to cross, and you're looking around and you're not ready yet. And somebody else near to you steps out and they go to cross the road and you go to join them. And as you go to join them, what happens? How do you feel? How do you feel? Because that is a vitally important thing for you to keep in mind as a trader. How do you feel? You feel uncomfortable. Because the belief was not born in you, it was created in you by another person. The other person stepped out and you weren't entirely ready, so you leapt forward there and you felt a little bit uneasy as you went across, and then maybe you went across, or maybe you didn't, you backed off and he went across or she went across and you didn't. And you see, so their belief was born before you. And it was the belief that crossed the road that enabled them to then cross the road, as it were. Very important. Keep in mind that story when you're thinking about trading, as you'll see later on. Now, so that's the sort of birth of a belief. I'll give you an example. The birth of a belief that allows you to cross the road. The next thing is that my horse, I've got written down here, and I don't actually have a horse, but my horse. And let's just take yourself, I'm not a gambling man, but, certain times I might have a bet on the Christmas type of thing on a certain horse or whatever, but I just picked a name, whatever. But we look at the we go to a dog track or whatever it is. We go to a horse track and we say, okay, I'm gonna bet that horse. I like the name of that horse, and so at that point there, you say, right, that's the one for me. You mark on the box and you pay your money across. Now, what happens at that point? Now, nothing's happened to your horse. Your horse is exactly the same horse that it was 5 minutes ago. But suddenly in your mind now, your horse is the best horse. You believe your horse is going to win. It takes on a completely new development. So the initial belief was, well, that's the one I'm going to bet on, that's the one I win. And now suddenly it's going to be good. You look at the horse and you see it trotting out on the track, and you look at your horse, there it is, there's number 8. Let's say it was number 8. There we go, that's my horse number 8. And you look at this horse and you focus in on it, and becomes the best horse on the track. Suddenly everything's good about this horse, and yet nothing has changed with the horse, nothing at all. It's only your belief. So life and death. So sorry, just finishing up on that. So crossing road, the birth of the belief. Okay, as we take on a belief, it becomes stronger. Okay, and then we get more hooked into that belief, and then we come to the life and death. So giving life to the belief, you might say, these two, and then we have the death period. Now let's take this as a horse race. I think it's a good example. The horse starts off number 8 and it's in the lead and it's doing well and doing great, and so as it's doing more and more, so your belief gets higher and higher and stronger and stronger and stronger in this, and gradually it drops back off, and the horse comes in, last, and there's the death, and that's the end of the race. But that period of time running through the race, whatever it is also how we function, how our minds function in terms of beliefs. Especially in the market, we can actually take a trade in the market, and we can say, okay, the market's going to go up from here, this is where I believe it's going to go. We take that trade, we believe that trade, and the market starts to go off, starts to move up, and our belief becomes reinforced. We feel stronger, we feel better about that, we feel good about it. And what happens is, here we say, yes, we convince ourselves it's going to go up. Often at that point then we'll move a stop up closer onto it, because now it's not going to go back, it's going to go up, and then eventually the market starts to come down. And what happens then is we get challenged, our belief gets challenged. So forget about the price now. Forget about the market price and think about what's actually going on within you as a trader. It's not price that's being manipulated. It's your belief about price that's being manipulated. And that is the essence what we're talking about here, that when we're talking about market maker and manipulation, we're not talking about price, although price is the form, the content. The thing behind there that's being manipulated is your belief about future price. And belief is a lot easier to manipulate on when you're talking about the masses than it is price. Once you can get to manipulate beliefs, you can get people to act in certain ways. If you believe you're going to win in this trade, then you will be willing to put your money into the market at this point. If you believe you're going to lose, you will not. So by manipulating beliefs, the market makers have control of you, control of the masses, and control of the market. Not by manipulating price, but by manipulating belief. And we'll get much more into this as we go further on into the course. Okay, let's have a look at emotions connected to life and death. Because how long do you hold on? How long do you hold on to this trade that's sort of not going in your way, but it is going your way, then it goes up and it's going, how long are you going to hold on to this trade? Okay, questions you have to ask yourself: what if I let go? What if I let go? What's going to happen if I let go of this trade? Because if I let go of this trade now, I'm going to lose some money. Do I want to lose money, or do I want to hold on? Where's the pain barrier there? Now the pain barrier will be circulating or oscillating, let's say, between the no man's land. So in other words, let's do a little example here for you. You've decided to buy at this level here, and you've got your stop loss down at this level here. So you've bought here, the market's done this, gone up a little bit here, your stop loss is down here now. Now the market's come back down here, and now the market's going through here. So you're neither in the money, you haven't made any money yet, you haven't lost any money. If you close this trade, you will have taken a loss on there. At this point here, what's going on? Really, it's just really a mental challenge. Your beliefs are being manipulated by the live price. The live price is moving around, but it's manipulating what you believe about your trading position. At this point here, you become very vulnerable because you become disconnected from the box. Okay, you become disconnected of what really is going on in the market maker's business model. You become disconnected and you become focused down onto the last price, which is flicking up and down. Now, this price here, but this period between the B and the buy and the sell, is what I call no man's land. This is the manipulation of belief area through here, and I will give you some figures on this as we get further into this. But this distance between here is pretty much, well, I'll tell you now, it's pretty much around about 30 pips, and you can map this out on any market that you go to. This period through here, about 30 pips here, is what I call, it's the belief manipulation period, not the market maker's manipulation period, but this is where you will become forced to change your mind. In other words, if your market's up here, by the time you get down to this here, you're going to literally be mentally forced to change your mind at this point here, and you'll take your profit there, sorry, your loss there, and you'll walk away from the market. Often what you'll find through this period is what really happens is that traders become hooked up more and more into the live price, and then gradually they take their stop at there was this level, and they move it up a little bit there, and the market will go up to here, and then they'll move the stop up a little bit tighter, and there, and then they'll move it up a little bit tighter because this is getting to them about how the market's going. And then what we'll see, the market will come down, punch out the stop, and then get off into the profit release phase. Now, by being aware of this, by being aware of this manipulation period through here, mental manipulation from you, you can observe this and you can remain connected to the box and understand that this is only a manipulation. You're being messed with, your beliefs are being messed with. Don't get caught up into that. Stay connected to the box. No man's land, very, very important. We will, like I say, we'll be doing more onto that, and I'll show you that directly onto the charts. Okay, now I want you to think about how beliefs are manipulated more, and for that we're going to talk about paper boats. Now, my belief is that the market, when we look at the market as a general whole, all the prices and everything else that's going on in the market, is an ever-shifting ocean of what? Beliefs. That's what I believe. Ever-shifting ocean of beliefs, not prices. In other words, we've got this constantly ever-shifting ocean of people buying and selling, people believing the market is going to go up or the market is going to go down. And when we're looking at that, we've got to accept the fact that something's going to be influencing that, as it were. Now, the story I'd like to sort of bring this in or get this into your mind with is I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that you're looking out at a lake and you can see lots of little paper boats. And in these paper boats, each one of these paper boats, thousands of them out there, are little individual traders sitting in these paper boats. And what we see is that the breeze is gently blowing around, as it were. And as you observe the breeze coming in, and the only way you can see the breeze, of course, is by the boats, how they move off. And you notice how that one or two of them may break away, and then the rest start to follow off, and then the breeze changes, and then they come back around. That's the image I want you to have in your mind about how beliefs are manipulated. How those boats literally are being blown around by the wind, and the market makers, being the wind, wherever they move the boats, are manipulating the minds of the traders inside the boats. Of course, if they weren't inside the boats and they were out at an vantage point, then they could see down onto that. But you gradually keep that in your mind. The wind, the market makes the wind, and that's how the market is being pushed around and believing. And that's where you end up, the 95%, the masses, as it were. Okay, so the dependent mind. Now, the dependent mind is because if you imagine all these little traders sitting inside these boats, they're dependent on one another. They're watching one another. They see their mate's boat go off, or their fellow trader boats, and they see them all going this way, and of course they want to join in, they want to go. They must be right, because that's where all the boats are going. And so you have this, the dependent mind is watching the chart. If you're watching the form of the chart, you're becoming dependent upon the other beliefs around all the outside traders around. So you're becoming dependent upon what the other traders are doing. You're becoming dependent on the form the chart is taking. You're being drawn in to the paper boat scenario that's moving around, whereas really the market makers are controlling this by angling the direction of the wind where they're going to move the boats. I hope that story sort of, I hadn't thought about it too much, but I think that story is a pretty good one for thinking about how the boats can be moved around by the wind, and the dependent mind being each boat depending on the other, or thinking about what the other boats are doing. Okay, now what I want you to do is to take a different perspective of this. I don't want you to be in the boats with these people. I don't want you to be one of these. I want you to take a different perspective. And I want you to take the perspective of a general against the foot soldier. And I want you to again think of an image. You're a general, okay, and you're on the top of the hill here. There's you up there, and you're looking down here, and here's the battle raging away. All the soldiers are fighting up down here, and everything's going on. You've got different armies attacking in, and all this all there, and you're right up here, nice and safe. And now, what's the job of the general? The job of the general is to look down on here and observe what's going on. Now, if he stays up here, he can observe what's going on. He can see if there's going to be a counter-attack. He can see if these soldiers are going to be outflanked. He can observe all this information up here. Now, what I'm teaching you to do is to be the general. I want you to be up here and look at this and see all the things, the accumulation, the manipulation, and the profit release start to unfold. But let me explain to you what happens for most traders when they start off. A lot of traders will start off in this position. They're up on top of the hill here, and they can take a dispassionate view of what's going on in front of them, and they're looking on their charts. And what happens is, the very moment that they take the trade, they start to descend, and they move lower down the hill. And with each successive move lower, they are able to see less and less of what's going on down here, until eventually what you end up with is the general is right down here with his men. And now, once he's down here, he cannot see. He's completely blind. He cannot see if there was a flank attack. He cannot see if there's another opposing force coming in. He cannot see if reinforcements are coming in as he's asked. So he is now in a great deal of trouble down here, and the other general sitting up on here can now see this general down here, knows that he's got him. This guy up here has got him, because now the general's down, he's in with the foot soldiers, he's in with the little boats, he's all around there. And this is what you must guard against, because this is looking at the form of the market. Okay, this is looking at the chart. This is staring at the front. When you're down here, stuck in here with all these others, you are looking at the form the chart is taking in front of you. You need to get away from this area as quickly as possible, climb back up here and get back up on the top here and take the perspective, looking down on the general, looking over what's going on, and you're simply trying to observe accumulation, manipulation, profit release. You want the profit release so you can make money, and the only way you'll make money is by staying up here and observing the market maker's business model, which is going on down here. If you descend down the hill, get into there, you're going to be chart watching, and you're going to get yourself into trouble very, very quickly. Okay, so let's have a look now over here, and this is pretty much, I want to look at the anatomy of trading. I think that's actually our last one on this section. The anatomy of trading. What's going on? Take the whole thing. Anatomy of the human body, anatomy of trading. Understanding the functions that make up the whole. If you get away from that facade, get into the back, you start understanding the functions that make up the whole. The functions are accumulation, manipulation, profit release. And I'm never going to stop talking about those three to you, because that's where we're at. That's where we're coming from. Understanding that anatomy and how that anatomy works, the processes that go through, and let's quickly run through them again. The accumulation is where you're going to be in a situation where you're accumulating, either accumulating buys or you're accumulating sales. Either way, you're accumulating for a later process to take out for profit release. Second, manipulation. You are starting going through a manipulation phase. The manipulation phase, as we've talked about here with the boats and with the general, is about manipulating beliefs. Very important. Think about that. Think about the horse race. Think about the boats. Think about the general. It's beliefs that are being manipulated. By manipulating your beliefs, it will open your wallet to allow you to enter in the market. You will not buy the market until you believe the market is going to go up. You will not sell a market until you believe the market is going to go down. The market makers are in the business of manipulating your beliefs, not price. Price is inconsequential. It's an average thing. If you buy 100 contracts spread over a certain area, you'll end up with an average price. As long as you manipulate beliefs around those figures, you can control the market. It is beliefs that are being manipulated. I know the price is there, but the price, remember, is the facade. What's really behind there is the content that we're interested in. And then we have the third element, which is the profit release. And when the profit release goes, that's when all the accumulation has been done, beliefs have been manipulated, then the set of beliefs are initiated that they really want you to now have, which in this case is a rising market. So in other words, all your indicators start to cross, everything goes up and everything looks rosy. Now the beliefs are given to you, handed to you on a plate. There you go. Now it's going to go up. The market starts to go up. Now you join in, and they then sell into that rise, thus releasing their profits. That's the model on there. So we're understanding the anatomy. That's the whole anatomy of trading as it goes. And there we go. I'll just run through those there. Looking at was accumulation, manipulation, and the profit release. Okay, so I'm going to get the next chart up, and I'll catch up with you in a few moments. Okay, so a culmination of everything that we've covered so far, being the accumulation, the manipulation, the profit release cycle, and everything that goes on around that or within that, what have we actually discovered? Well, markets are highly organised, they are structured, and they are manipulated. This is a business. This is a complete business. Wrap this up into a whole ball, and that's what we have, a highly organised and structured, manipulated business. Okay, now, when we look at this as a model, how do we achieve success? What is success, or how is success going to be achieved by us as traders when we're looking at this model? Well, trading success, this is my definition of what was required, if you like. Trading success is achieved by understanding the model. If we can understand the model, the complete business model of anything, understand how that works, how it functions, whether it's manipulated or not, in the case of if we're looking at any normal business model, if we could understand that model, we can then interact with it and then profit from that. In our case, obviously, we're a manipulated model, but nevertheless, by understanding that model, we can become actively involved. First off, you need to observe the model. You've got to observe this model working. It's all very good me saying, okay, this is how this works. Okay, I know we've seen live trading and that shows you what we do, but you also need to observe the model. So you need to be in a position where you can observe accumulation, observe the manipulation, and then observe the profit release. And you need to be able to observe that in different scenarios. You need to understand when the market's going to enter any of those phases, when it's leaving one of those phases to go to another one. And you'll only do this by observing that model over a period of time. Now that period of time will of course be different for different people, depending of course on the hours that you can actually put in when you're initially starting this business, or when you're initially starting to think this way and start to explore the model, is how much time you can put in to observing the model. Now I hasten to add here, you can obviously put a lot of time looking at static charts, but what you really need to be doing is to put in time looking at live markets, and so you can see these phases developing and starting to be manipulated or whatever, and then see the phases play out. You need to see that in real time. Okay, and then what you need to do is you need to practice with the model. So once you've understood the model, you've observed the model, and now you need to practice with the model. You need to get in there and do this. Now you can do this with a demo account, which is a demonstration account basically, so you're not actually using physical money in there, but you can get into there and set everything up, so observe it, you're putting into practice your understanding, you're putting into practice your observations, and now you're practicing directly onto the screen and taking those trades and seeing how you're interacting with that model and producing obviously profits. And then fourthly there, you've got to actively join the model. When you've completed these three here and now you're totally comfortable with the model, you now actively join that model by opening a real trading account, or now you actually start putting real money in. Now the big difference here is, remember we talked about how traders will test things and go through the cycle, and they get into a loop where they develop a strategy and then they go in, they put live, and then it changes again and they go back and reinvent the strategy, and so on. They go through the cycle. The beauty of trading this model is this model never ever changes. Never. On a day-to-day basis, year by year. In 10 years from now, this will still be doing the same as it always has done. It's never going to change. So you only have to put the effort into this once to understand and learn this, and once you do that, you're finished. Your learning is over. You can then just get in and participate in the model, and that's got to be very exciting for you as a trader. Okay, let's have a look now, really as pretty much of a summary of what we've covered through this section. We looked at how to lose, and very important how people don't consider that, and how to lose and what's involved in losing. Why, so not so much as why you lose, because sometimes you're going to get caught up in that manipulation and you're going to lose as a result of that manipulation. But understanding how to lose, it's part of the process. We looked at the required mindset, what's involved, what needs to be going on here, what's the mindset that we need to be holding. We covered that as well. We looked at recognition. Remember that about the circles, how you can have a complete circle, and we recognise that instantly as a circle. And we can be only given sometimes components of a circle, but we can recognise the form that is taking. Then we can call that a circle, and our minds recognise that. And often when we're trading, we're looking at the model, we have these components that we put together, and then we recognise the model. Recognise the circle, recognise the model, we recognise that as a complete unit, and that's when we're able to trade, when we get that moment of recognition. But often we will only have pieces of that as we put it together, and then we snap it together. That's our point, and that's when we go to trade. So that really covered into that is when we actually trade, when we get the piecing together of all the component parts and we recognise what's actually going on at this stage. We looked at beliefs, and we only briefly touched on beliefs really, and how it's beliefs that are behind the price movement. You will not actively go out and buy something until you believe that's going to increase in value. That might be an investment, of course. We're not talking about a product, a TV or something. But you will not put your money on until you believe the market is going to rise in value. Likewise, you will not sell something until you believe the market is going to fall. You will be unable to act, remember crossing the road, unable to act, unable to buy the market or sell the market until you develop that belief within yourself. Trading is about beliefs. It's not about price. It's about you developing a belief, outside traders developing a belief, and the manipulation of those beliefs. And ultimately, that's what we're going to be reading. Okay, so trading success. Now, what you actually need, is basically a workable plan, and that's where we're going to go is to the workable plan. But first off, I want to look at some trading tools. And here we got marked up. You can see we've got up here the candle, the mighty candle, and this is a trading tool that a lot of traders use, and I would say probably as many as 95%, certainly 90%, 95%, could be as high as that, are using the candle concept there, of the candle pattern. The other one I've got marked over here is the open, high, low, close bar. Now, just for those of you who don't know, I'll just talk you through these two. Basically, these can be different colours depending on how you want to paint those up on your charts. But generally speaking, you might have a blue candle here and a red candle here. And what you're actually looking at, this top point here is the highest point that the price travelled within this time span. And let's say each one is a 10-minute time frame. This will be the lowest price that the market travelled with that point. And this is going to be basically the open and then the close. So what we know is, as a result of this, the market opened, say here, went down to here, went up to here, dropped back to here, and closed off here, and that shows an upward moving candle, if you like. And the same was this one. The market opened and then closed down, and again this is the highest point and this is the lowest point, and this gives you this candle pattern. This one is a little bit easier to get your head around, maybe, from the start off. The open, high, low, close bar, and it's pretty much got a leg on the side here and a leg on the right hand side there and a vertical bar. All we have is this is the highest point the market travelled to, same as this one. This is the open, same as this one. This is the close position, and that's the low. So basically open, high, low and close. Now the next thing we have down here is the moving average, the mighty moving average. And for those of you who don't know, this is pretty much how this works. Basically you'll average these bars over a given time. So say there's 10 minute bars, and we say, and each one of these is a 10 minute. We will average the price of these over, let's say the last 10 candles. You average the price, and this will produce a wavy line like this. And then you have another moving average that you average maybe over 15. So obviously clearly one will react faster than the other. A 10 speed, let us say, moving average will react faster as the market changes to 1 over 15 of the candles. So what you end up with two lines. Maybe one is a 10, one's a 15. Not just arbitrary figures I've chosen, they could be anything. As you can see, what happens is the market goes down, one crosses over the other and then comes back up. And the mighty moving average is, people go to historically and they'll say, oh yes, I will sell when the point crosses under here, and then I'll buy when the point crosses above here, and that'll produce a little loss here and a great big gain here. Of course, in the real world, of course, you never know when it's going to cross here, or if it's going to cross until afterwards, by which time you already sold the market right at the low point here, and you never know if the market's going to carry on after there. Now I've got other ones indicated up here, marked up. We've got the MACD, Fibonacci, Elliott Wave, and EA, expert advisors. Expert advisor, not a person as such. You program things into your computer screen and it's deemed as an expert advisor as to what the price is doing. So these are trading tools that are available to you. But I've got a question mark down here for you, big red letters, yours. What I want you to consider, what I'm actually going to state here now, and also then I want you to really consider about this, is something vitally important. Whose tools are these? Traders will say they are their trading tools. I will argue these are not their trading tools. These are not your trading tools. These are the trading tools of the market makers. And that is why 95% of traders lose money over time, because you are trading using the tools that the market makers present to you. The market makers know exactly how these work, exactly how the moving averages work. The market makers can create any of these bar patterns in any of these indicators, as many as there are, at will. And so if you are trading these tools, you are trading the tools of the market maker. And that is such an important thing for you to get your head around, to understand really how distancing yourself you are from really understanding the model by trading the tools of the market maker. So have a real think about that one. Okay, so on to really a single tool. Now this is where we're starting to get towards the PAT software. We're starting to get towards what everything that I do is all about. And I only have a single tool, one single thing. And that is when you look at a PAT chart, rather than you look at the candles, the open, high, the close, the moving averages, and all this sort of stuff that you have, all these market maker trading tools, in the PAT software we have one tool, which is really the bedrock of everything else that comes from. And we'll be talking about those as we go on. And it is the belief bar. This single bar here that runs through, and we'll look at this onto a chart so you can get a better understanding of this. This single bar, horizontal bar that runs through the vertical bar, that is the essence of every single thing that we do about trading the model. Once you understand this belief bar and the position on the chart relative to other belief bars, you are going to be reading the market in a way that you have never dreamt possible, in a way that will truly open your eyes to exactly that which is going on. Now, we also have the vertical bar on here. Now the main difference with this is, of course, main difference. First off, this is going to be the high point. This is going to be the high point, whichever time frame this is set on, and this is going to be the low point. But really, as traders and looking at PAT, these are only markers for us. We're not really interested in the high and the low, because it really doesn't tell us very much at all. In fact, it tells us such a small amount of information, it's really not worth it. In fact, we actually have a button in Pat, a one-click button where you can turn this bar off and actually only visibly see that line on your chart. And it's quite amazing when you just look at that one bar running through your chart where it's relative to other bars, how you can effectively read the market. Now this is a belief bar because this bar displays the collective beliefs at any one point in time that are existing in the market. The predominant beliefs at any given time period that we mark up, that is what that bar actually displays. It's the only chart like it in the world. There is no other chart. This was designed from the actual ground up as my personal trading tool, which you're now going to have access to. Okay, so Pat really does three things. It's what it does. The whole thing about Pat software is designed just to do three things, and it's designed to show us where the accumulation is, to show us where the manipulation is, and to show us where the profit release is. And by doing those three things, that will now enable us to enter into the market maker's business model. And those three things there come right back up into that belief bar. And that is what you have to learn about. That is the single thing. Now think about that. Think about the power that you have in there. You don't have to learn all these indicators. You don't have to learn all these weird and wonderful things. You don't have to learn about strategies, anything like that at all. Simply understand this one concept of belief and how beliefs are manipulated, and you are able to read the market in a way that you possibly now can't imagine how good this is going to be. But believe you me, when you understand this, it's like having the curtains open and suddenly you look through and you get that aha moment and you see, my God, this is actually an extremely simple business. Then you get excited and then you start making money. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is intent. What is intent? If I intend to do something, somebody has intent to do something or intend to do something, it's an implication to do something maybe. Now, it doesn't really matter what the definition of the word is, because I want to just use it in terms of a market maker perspective. Let's say the market maker has an intent to drive the market up or an intent to drive the market down. That's as good as we need to discuss really intent. So and also when we're looking at that, so basically we have the intent, what it is. We understand that the market maker has, like I say, the intent to drive up or intent to drive down. Then there's something else to consider with a market maker perspective, of course, because we have manipulation. Is it true intent? When a market goes up, is it true? We might say to somebody, I intend to mow the lawn this afternoon, but really you don't. The lawn still needs mowing, and you might get to the lawn mowing the lawn eventually, but you haven't really got any intent to do it. So does the market maker have true intent in the direction that the market's currently moving? So, and also false intent. So are some indications given that look like true intent, but actually they're false? So we promised to mow the lawn, but really we're not really thinking about that. So the same things are the same things going on in the market? Yes, they are, and intent is something that we need to be very much aware of. In other words, trading with intent in mind. What is the intent of the market makers now? What is their intent in the future? What is it going to be? Or where is intent developing in there? Okay, so we'll be looking at that directly onto the Pat charts shortly, which is exactly where we're going to go now. We're going to go straight over to the Pat charts. We're going to be looking at intent. We're going to be looking at all the things we've covered there, because now pretty much we're getting to the end of the white chart. As you can see, we're pretty much got a blank chart here now. We've pretty much covered everything that I can talk to you about without getting right in there and showing you how this works, how it's displayed, how everything works, and how we make money. So I'll catch up with you very soon right over there on the charts, and we'll get on from there. Well, hi and welcome to the other side, so to speak. Well, here we are pretty much at the screens now, and what we're going to be doing now is looking at the Pat software. Now, you remember on the website I said to you about the DVDs will be teaching you how the market works, and that's exactly what we've done so far. All through the flip charts we've been looking at the market maker's business model. We've been breaking it down, looking at the component parts of it and understanding how that works. Now, of course, you could take that information now and you could spend some time looking at your own charts, devising certain things, and I'm sure that you could do very well with that information. And some of my students actually do that. That's what they do. They go off with their own software and they do their own thing, but encapsulated within the market maker's model. Now, what I want to show you now is the PAT software. It's my software. It's what was designed for me. It was never designed as a big commercial product. It was simply all my knowledge, everything that I'd learned about the market makers business model was put into the software to enable me to read the cycle. So basically my software is very, very simple in terms of all we're looking at is where is the accumulation, the manipulation and the profit release. That's it. That's what we want to do. Now what we're going to do is start off is I'm going to show you the basic sort of chart layout. So gradually think of this as like the sort of the clean interface of the chart and the markets and the bars we're looking at, and then gradually what I'll do is I'll add in the components by just selecting certain things and pulling them up on the screen so you can see how PAT actually maps out what we're looking at, the market maker's business model. Now one of the first things that I wanted to cover today, and we're going to be looking at this directly onto the PAT screen. I keep motioning over here because this is where the PAT screen is, and we're going to be actually looking at directly on the screen in a moment, is the market maker in intent. Now you remember when we talked about intent on the flip chart. Now what we want to see is what's the market maker up to? Where in the cycle of the accumulation, manipulation properties, where are they? What's going on and what's being manipulated? Now the first thing we're going to look at, as I say, is going to be intent, because if we can see intent, what is the market maker's intent? If we can see that and get a handle on that, that gives us a tremendous foundation upon which to base our market analysis, our understanding and our future trades. And there's going to be two types of intent. There's going to be the intent that's true and genuine. You know, I remember we talked about I am going to mow the lawn, and it's true intent, and if it was true intent, you'd go and do that. And there's going to be the false intent, the misleading. Now, we're always going to have those two when we're looking at trading. We're always going to have those. The important thing is to understand that they're both as valuable as one another, because they can tell us a great deal about subsequent market action. You could even argue that false intent is marginally actually better once we understand that it was false intent. So without further ado, let's get over onto the PAT chart and have a look at how PAT software shows us the market maker's intent. Let's get over there now. Okay, so what we have here as we're looking at the PAT chart, now I've selected a 60-minute chart here, and this happens to be of the euro. Now the reason in which I've done this is because I wanted to give a more broad appeal. I didn't want to get in closer onto smaller time frames. I wanted to show a longer time frame, and I wanted to show you these intent blocks. Now I hasten to add that regardless of the time setting that you pull up, so if I'd got a 10-minute chart here, 60-minute chart here, 4-hour chart here, day chart here, these intent blocks are going to be in exactly the same position. Now that in itself should tell you something about the power of what we do here. That we are looking at market maker activities, we're looking at the intent of the market makers, and we're looking at where that shows up, and it shows up in the same place regardless of the time frame that you're currently looking at. And just stop for a moment and think how valuable that information is at the same time. Doesn't matter what time frame, there's the same information. You can change that time frame, but it's still there. And what you're going to see is you're going to see these blocks, and I'll point to them here to just highlight these up. You can see here we've got a red block, sort of a darker red block, and here we've got a green block down here, and green blocks up here. Now what is this actually showing us? Well, clearly we can see from here these are extremely useful, because we can see that this first red block, as this came in, this indicated that the market was highly likely to go down at this point. It showed us the market maker's hand. It showed us their intent at this time. Now this particular intent block was great because this was their genuine intent. Although it didn't go off straight away, it sort of revealed their hand a little bit earlier. And you'll notice that often what we'll see after these is the market will move back against it. Now of course we already know what this is. This is manipulation. And so that's great information to have. When we get the intent block in a certain direction, we can expect a little bit of manipulation, and then we see the market play out in that ultimate direction. And you know, when you actually look off and you see this and you follow on from this one particular red here, we can see how we get this misdirection and then the market starts to actually move up. Now I'll cover the colours of these later, but just to give you a little bit of an idea about these, you see how these yellow, these three after this, so in other words we get the intent block and then we get these yellow bars after here. What that's actually indicating, because they're successively yellow, it's indicating a sort of waning, if you like, a dropping off of intent for the market to go higher. But as I say, more of that later. For now, let's stick with the intent blocks. So we can see the intent block comes in, as I say. We then get that manipulation, which is that bit of move up, and then the market gets off and settles off down into its down move. Now I'm just going to put a tool on here that I have, just because I want to mark up the sort of distance these are travelling, to give us an idea. Top of the move there. Okay, this gives us about 90 pips, we can see from down there. So once we got the intent block in, we can see a nice 90 pip move off to trade into there. Now the thing that is here, also notice that through this period here, again we get this manipulation, we get this market starting to move up, and it does move up a considerable distance, so around about 60 odd pips. The key point here to take from this is that at this point, right at this point here, at 10 o'clock, you can see here on the 23rd, this is the highest point the market retraced back to. It was still below the market maker's intent bar. So the belief bar, which is the horizontal bar running through here, and again I'll cover these belief bars for you in a moment, but basically what I'm saying is that the intent had not changed. The intent was still showing down, and then later on we get another red here, another red block. Now these are intent, keep in mind these are intent blocks, okay, so we'll talk about other colours in a while, but these are intent blocks. So with this next intent block, red again, takes us down, and you can see the market quickly drops away and then gets into a sustained down move. Now the power of these blocks are that once you have this intent, and you can clearly see this intent, even though the market may start to rise up at certain times, you can be assured that generally speaking these will be false moves. These will be moves against the true market maker intent. Now obviously then we get down at the bottom, down through here, we can see we get the green. Now what's the green telling us? The green telling us that the market maker's intent here is for the upside. That's their true intent at this side, is the upside. And we can see then that once again that market plays out. Market starts to come up, and then we get the drop back down through this period here. And let's just put the marker on, just to give us a rough idea. Yep, 45 pips from this top of this bar down to here, about a 45 pip manipulation zone, and then we get the next green in. Again, what I need you to draw from this is that because we've had this 45 pip retrace, you as a pat trader would have as your foundation this earlier green through here. You would have this as your foundation, and you'd be seeing that the market maker's intent here, in this case, and clearly it was because it continued on up after this, the intent was to the upside. So you would be very cautious about taking any short positions. You wouldn't be selling this market at all. In fact, you would only be looking for really long positions, that is to buy the market. And of course later on, what do we see? Once that market's retraced and it's cleaned out all the stops and all the moving averages now have crossed down and people have got sell signals through here, nice big lots of volume, bang, and up it goes again and takes off again, and yet another 90 pip move right from the bottom here right the way through the top, actually in excess of that. Again, another green on the way indicating strength, and then at the top here we get this next green. Now this next green is very different. Now this is what we call the false intent. Now have a look at the difference of this one. Notice that on this one example down here, we get the green, and then we get the next bar actually moves up, and the whole thing starts to play out in the direction of the intent. Now this one, however, notice where's the next up bar? It doesn't occur. It actually comes off and then starts to go through this accumulation period, which is through here. So clearly we can see that after this green, there's something going on very different. This is not showing intent. This is what is known as false intent, and this is absolutely superb information for us. Basically what we end up with, we can see that as soon as we get this intent bar and the market doesn't continue up, and that's a sort of alarm bell for us. We're saying, hang on a minute, well, the market makers have shown us intent here, but they're actually not playing out their hand. They're not playing out intent. The market isn't going up. It's not showing that upside. So what's going on? immediately what do we see? The market goes into accumulation period. Very handy. So we've got a false move to the upside. We then get into an accumulation phase. Now, if the market's going into accumulation phase, we know that the ultimately aim is to make profit. Where is the profit likely going to occur? Now, of course, we don't know, because the market could, through this period, accumulate more buys and could give us another move to the upside. However, what we see is a red. So the market maker has now shown their intent. Now, the reason why we can take this immediately as an intent to the downside is because why? We've seen a false green. We've seen false intent to the upside, and now we see the true intent to the downside. So now what we're only looking for, we're only looking to sell the market. That is, we're looking for selling opportunities. Now, you recall over here where I said to you that we had the waning beliefs. You see that we have the successive yellow bars here after the intent bar, showing us. Now look over here, and you see how we get the same effect running through here. So in other words, the intent is not really, there's no real desire, it's waning to the upside, because basically the market makers haven't revealed their hand to us. And I hasten to add that this is not available on any other software anywhere in the world. This is totally unique software. This is my personal software developed for me. This is a totally unique indicator, and something I've worked for many years to actually get into the software. But that beside the point, what I don't want you to do is try and go off and find these blocks on other software, because it's a waste of time. You won't be able to find this. So when we're looking at this, we can see the waning belief to the upside, and we see the same sort of pattern. Now, I deliberately said the word pattern there, deliberately, because what I don't want you to do, even though I've highlighted these areas for you, is I don't want you to look at this pattern. I don't want you to look for 3 successive yellow bars, because that would be sheer folly. You would be defaulting into looking at the facade. What we need to be doing is, when we're looking at the PAT software, what we're actually doing is looking at the market maker's mechanics. So by looking at the intent bar, what we're actually seeing is the hand of the market maker. They're showing us their hand, albeit they're maybe not very happy about that, but they're showing us their hand, showing us their intent, and we can see that. And we then, after that, when we see different bars and how they react, we can understand those bars relative to the intent block, relative to the market maker's business model. And then, as you can see, the market gets into a down move, and away it goes from there, and then settles off. Okay, so that was your first look at the market maker intent blocks, and we looked at that in a 60-minute time frame, because I wanted to make it quite big. I wanted it to expand out so you could clearly see those sections. Now, like I say though, we can now go to a 10-minute chart, and those bars that you saw in the position on the 60-minute chart will be price-wise identical to the position on the 10-minute chart, on the 15-minute chart, on the 20-minute chart. Now, just, excuse me if I'm smiling, but just think about what this actually means to you. You have specific information at specific times of the market maker's intent and where they take the market. And we've only got to the core of what PAT does. We haven't even looked at entry yet. We haven't looked at where to get in. We haven't looked at where to get out. We haven't looked at stop taking. We haven't looked at the accumulation tool, anything. All we've looked at here is the foundation of actually what PAT is built on. It's showing us that market maker intent. So let's get back now and just expand out a little bit this, and talk about some more of the base core part of PAT. And what I want to talk about now is the belief bar. You remember that we talked about the I should have showed you up on the white chart there, the flip chart, and now I'd like to show you the belief bar in PAT, so you understand what I'm talking about when I talk to you about, when I say talk about beliefs. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's get back over there now. Okay, so when we're talking about the belief bar, what I'm referring to here is the horizontal bar that crosses through the vertical bar. The vertical bar is black, in this case black. We can change those, but in this example I've got set up here, the vertical bar is the thin black line. The belief bar is the horizontal line that runs through the vertical bar. Now you can see here we've got some of them are yellow, some of them are blue. Again, you could change those if you wanted to, but generally we'll keep those at the same sort of settings for everybody. And occasionally you'll see where they're green, or they're actually red. Or there isn't actually red ones on. Yes, there is. There's a red one on this chart down here at the start of the day here, and there's also a green one down here. That's when they're all green. Now I'll get to those later on, but for now, just think about when I talk about the belief bar. The belief bar is this, like I say, the horizontal bar running through the vertical black line. Now, what do these tell us? Well, the belief bar is really at the heart of Pat. It's the core, the essence of what we're talking about. We're trading those beliefs, because what we want to know is when these beliefs enter the market and how those beliefs are moving. So if beliefs are moving in a particular direction of up, we want to know that. It's valuable information. We also want to know if those beliefs have been manipulated, are being manipulated. And when you look at something like this, we can see this down intent block, the intent block being the thing we just covered, and we can see that this belief bar we've got at this level at 10 o'clock, and then we have a belief level down here at 11 o'clock, and you can see the disparity between the two. Now what's actually occurred is there's been a dramatic shift in the beliefs about future price, and Pat has told us that. Regardless of the fact that we've just got this up move and then this down move, which is the facade of the chart, what Pat is really telling us, by looking at the belief bar, we get an underlying essence of what's going on in the market. There's been a dramatic shift in beliefs regarding future price. You can see the same thing occurred when you look back over here, and we get this shift down here, and you can see that starts to develop, and then we get the market intent block. However, there is a couple of things I just want to draw your attention to here, and we'll get to this later on. And it's what I term as how a dramatic shift occurs. If you look at the market going through this period here, we can see that the market is gradually stepping up and stepping up and stepping up. So the beliefs are getting higher. But at the same time, you can see the yellows are coming in, which are also telling us they're waning. And then we get this one bar at 11 o'clock, this one belief bar that drops right down. And look at what it does. In effect, it wipes out the preceding four, in this case, 4 belief bars. It completely wipes them out. It's a dramatic shift in perspective of where the market's going to go. And of course, we've got that. Not only do we have the information given to us by the belief bar itself dropping down, we also, in this case, have the intent bar as well. And again, have a look down at this point here. We can see the market starts to show us intent, which is the green block, the intent block going up here, and we can see the market starts to move up, and then we see the market drops back down. But in this case, what do we see? We still get a green, so we're still following the green, so we can still see the upside. And then we see the next bar, which is at 14. See how the beliefs bar then literally jumps up yet again. Now again, we're looking at 60-minute chart here, so it's slowed down if you like. We will get down to smaller time frames where they see this, but for now I just want to give you the structure of Pat and how that's laid out. Again, we go back over to here, we can see running through this period the market starts to come up, and then we get this red intent block down. The belief bar drops right down here, and you can see how it literally takes out or smashes through those beliefs. Now ask yourself the question, forget about the chart pattern here. Traders that have gone up through here and start to build this up as an up move, we can see that because they were blue, there was an increase, and then all of a sudden this comes down and shows intent. What happens to the state of mind of these traders who have been, obviously we can see now these traders have been sucked in, and the market makers have shown their intent by showing us, so we can see this the intent block. And of course what we do is we get the false move, and then once again we get that very same smashing, that jumping down, that violent move of the beliefs, which crashes it yet again, and then we see it yet again run through this process and down yet again. So the same repetitive process. So when we're looking at the belief bar, we get a tremendous amount of information of the condition of the market. We get a real insight into actually what is going on. Okay, so welcome back and away from the screen for a moment. Now I know sometimes when we're looking at a screen like this, it's quite an intense experience because you're looking at something that you don't understand. We can see a chart that you've never seen before. It's nothing like any other chart, And really, when we're looking at, we explain we've got the vertical bar and we've got the belief bar that sits through it. For all intents and purposes, we don't actually pay very much attention to the vertical bar at all, other than really for entry. We look at it for when stops are taken deliberately. Again, we'll get to that as part of the course. So it's quite a lot for you to take in. I accept that, I realise that. So sort of, you can replay the DVD, you can go over things again and again. But so far, what we've looked at is the all-important intent bars. Look, the market maker intent. What is their intent for that market? Very, very important information for us to have. And we're looking at the belief bar and how the belief bar moves and shows us where the predominant beliefs are at that time in the market. Again, think about that. Very important to know where are the predominant beliefs with regard to the intent, and how are those beliefs changing. When are we seeing a dramatic shift? Things are going up, then we see a dramatic shift to coming down. Also, where we see the market coming down, and then we see dramatic shift to the upside. That gives us a tremendous amount of information and really gives us the bedrock, the foundation upon which to trade the market on. Okay, so let's move on now to our next section. Hi and welcome to our next section. Again, we're going to be going straight back onto the charts, and really we're just now putting everything into context that we went through on the flip chart. Now I want to pay attention to three particular things here. We remember that we talked very much about accumulation and how that was the hinge pin, that was from where everything came. So you can understand, obviously, it's vitally important that we not only understand that, it's all very well sort of understanding it, saying, okay, well, accumulation, that's it, and we can see that play out, and you saw the live trades earlier and how it'll work. That's fine, but it's already well saying that's where it comes from. But we need to be able to identify that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is a trade finder mechanism, or trade finder tool we actually call it, and I'll show you about that as well when we get to there in a moment. And the third thing I want to do is to then just tie that in with the intent blocks. So we'll have a look again at the intent blocks, but now we're adding to it. So we're adding to it, which is something which is called the floating zone, which I'll explain to you in a moment. We're adding to it a grid system. Now the grid system, I hasten to add that when you look at this, you'll just think it's a normal grid, because it looks like a normal grid, but it's not. It's a dynamic grid. It actually moves as the market, but I'll show you why that is and how that gets on in a moment. So basically what we're doing then is we've got the mechanics that went through, and the mechanics in terms of the market maker's business model, and now what we're doing is we've gone to the intent blocks. We're now going to add the components back onto that and then bring sense and meaning to when we're looking at the market. So let's get back on the screen now. Okay, so here we are on the chart, and like I say, I want to draw your attention to three main areas of this chart. The first area I want to draw your attention to, and I'll just get a marker on here so we can see this, are these three orange lines that you see here. Now I'm just highlighting them at this point, obviously, because it's nice and clear to see. There's nothing contained within the three of them. But if you look back over here, you can see there's the belief bars are contained within. But so basically, that's the first area that I want you to pay attention to, is that those three lines. You can see that two of them are dashed, meaning this outside one here and this outside one here are dashed lines, and the centre line is a solid line. Okay, get rid of those markers. So that's the first area I want you to draw your attention to. The second area I want you to draw your attention to is the grid that you see. And let's get a marker on here so we no misunderstanding. The grid here. So basically these dashed horizontal and vertical lines. Now, if you've been trading for any time, you'll obviously be aware you can put a grid pretty much on any chart. It's just how it works. Just click on grid and a grid appears. Now, this grid is not your standard grid. This is a dynamic grid, and this is actually achieved by I'll just show you, let's get rid of that, by going to the options menu, and you can see I've checked down here show extended zones. We should perhaps name that a little bit clearer, but basically extended zones is how we started off, and that's the name that sort of stuck. But that gives us this grid. And this grid, as I say, is dynamic. So in other words, what it's doing is it is adjusting itself relative to the last price. So in other words, as the live price is going along, everything's moving along, it's adjusting itself relative to that. Now, it's not very much, it just moves a slight amount, but it does make quite an important difference when you're actually trading live. Okay, so we've got the floating zone. And I just better explain, that's what we call this, which is the floating zone. Now, there are actually two floating zones, but for now we're just concentrating on floating zone number 2, which is the orange lines that we've set up. Incidentally, you could set these to any colour you wanted, that's entirely up to you, but I've set these up as orange because I think they show up pretty well on the screen. Okay, so we've got the floating zone 2, which are the 3 lines. We've got the dynamic grid, okay, and you can also see in this screenshot that we've got the intent blocks as well. So how do we use this? How do we use this floating zone? Well, the floating zone really is an accumulation finding tool. Now, you remember that when we were going through the first part of the course, we talked about accumulation, how important that is, and of course, for anything that important, we need to know when it occurs. We want to know where it is, because once we know that, we can then use that information to then trade accordingly. Now, you can see just right off to our left here, you can actually see through there, there's an area of accumulation, nice and easy to spot. What are the characteristics of it? The characteristics of a good definition, if you like, or a good type of accumulation that we want to see, is when we see a good series of belief bars. Remember, this is the belief bars, which are the horizontal bar that sits directly on each vertical black bar. So we want to see a good number of those really captured within the floating zone, so within those 3 lines. Now I'm going to just try really and stop talking about 3 lines. I'm going to actually call this the floating zone. So from now on, I say floating zone, imagine that's what I'm talking about, is those 3 lines going through there. So as we're looking at that, we're seeing predominantly a good congestion area, if you like, congestion of beliefs. And that's a good term there, congestion of beliefs, but it's not really just, we don't want to think of it as a congestion area. It's the congestion of a series of beliefs. In other words, confusion. Nobody's developing sort of strong beliefs in any particular direction at that point, and those beliefs are obviously being manipulated. Now, that's very, very important for us. Now, how do we trade this? What's the way in which we are going to make money from this information? Well, first off, let's get rid of the screen door again, and then get a fresh one on so we can see. When we're looking at, so we'd be following the market through, and we'd observe this area of accumulation here. Immediately following that, what do we see? We get our intent block. So pretty much we're set up now. We understand that we're looking for short positions, that is, we're looking to sell the market, we're not looking for a long position at all, and yet we see the market, of course, start to rise back up. Let's just get a mark on there. So we see the market actually start to sort of move back up as we see through this point here. But we're not interested in that because we have got our intent block. We understand the true intent of the market makers at this point, and we can see how that market's sort of kicked off from there. The great thing about this intent block is it's preceded immediately by an area of accumulation, which pretty much tells us we know what's in the box. We know it was accumulation of sell orders, and so we highly likely know this market is we're almost guaranteed by default this market is going to go down, and certainly we're guaranteed by default if it was accumulation of sell orders, we are guaranteed by default the down move. But we can clearly see we get the intent bar after that, intent block rather, and the market pushes off, tries to get a bit of a raise back up at this area. You can see how it raises up, but it starts to wane off, it goes yellow, and then the market gets into its down move. Now, I talked briefly on the preceding video about the jump bar, and there you can see here what we actually had as the market was going up through this period, through here, and there. If you look at that point, there was that bar there, which then literally jumped down and took out those beliefs, and then the market gets into its down move. Okay, so have we, at that point there, what have we actually got? We know we've got our accumulation, we know it was sells because we've got our intent block, we've got our very low risk entry on there, but we may well have missed that. Now, something that you will see occur time and time again is when a market gets underway. Remember, we had big circles and mini circles. The mini circles are really the market maker's business model within the overall move. So in other words, as we see the market, getting into its whole move, all this move down here, again, we get these areas, though we get these mini circles all the way as we go down. And providing we're understanding what they are, we can learn how to profit from those. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one. Now, what I want to do at this stage, just by the way, is just that you click on this button up here, and you don't need to really use this because you've got the dynamic grid, and if you see, it just sort of pretty much lines up with the grid system overall, but I'm using it really just to highlight for you and show you certain things. So when you've got an area of accumulation that we saw a moment ago, and let's get a frame around that so we can see. So pretty much where we identify this area here, think about what's going on at this stage. We've got our intent block, we know we're looking for shorts, but we can see the market gets back into this area as sort of accumulation area again. So where can we enter this market at a very low risk opportunity? Now what we do is we'd simply cast our eyes along the channel that we can see here, and I'm going to highlight that down here. So once we've got this area through here and we can see that, we literally wait for the market to come back into that frame, back into that accumulation area. What's going on? What's going on here is that this area here is an area of manipulation. So in other words, the market goes off, we can see it coming down, traders rush in to sell the market. As they do, the market starts to move back up again and punches out all the stops, and then the market continues on its merry way. Now let's get that all off and let's look at the same process again. Right down, so where's the next one? If we can look down here. Now this starts to get a little bit choppy. In other words, what we're seeing here is we're getting a lot of belief bars within the sort of congestion area, which is, as we know, our sorry, wrote the wrong box on there. So we're getting a lot of belief bars within the accumulation area, but this time they're getting a bit spread out, so it's not so clear for us to define, but again we can see that's okay. Doesn't really matter, because again we've got our intent bar. We know that the only way that we're looking for this market is, we can see we've got this intent bar here, we're only looking for this in terms of a selling opportunity. Get those off again, let's get rid of those. We can see, so what do? We've got our 3 yellow lines on. Again, we just really be looking through the channel. I'll just get this off so you can see what I mean when I say looking through the channel. So we're following on and sort of looking from this area, and we're looking along to our right here and seeing when the market gets back into there. And what do we see? The market lifts back up, gets back in to our accumulation area there, and then once again the market starts heading off yet again. Okay, so what we've seen through there is once we've got the indication of the intent block, everything plays out accordingly, just like clockwork, because it has to play out like clockwork, because this is the market maker's business model. This is how they make money. Consequently, this is how you are going to make money. Okay, now you also remember we talked about false intent. So we looked about true intent and false intent. Now what do we see when we get down to this area at the bottom down here? We see we get another intent block. Fantastic, great, continuation of the move. But what happens is, actually, the market starts to lift back up. So we know that this is not all according, this is not all right, this is not all happening exactly as it should. Now if we immediately look to the left of this accumulation, if we look immediately to the left of this intent block, what do we actually see? We see an area of accumulation. Now if this was an area of accumulation of sells, we would anticipate that the intent block would deliver more intent, it would take the market further down, but that is not what happens. What actually happens is the market starts to move up, and more importantly we get a most incredible indicator. We get this belief bar here that jumps up and literally clears everything in this area that is around here. Everything that's in this box here, accumulation area, it literally clears it and now gets underway. So we can now know that this intent block here was a misleading intent block. And that is very, very powerful information. Now, just as a side thing here, I want to just go onto the 60-minute chart and show you, because I said to you that what you'll see is that where these intent blocks appear, they'll appear right across any time frame. Now, we're looking at a 60-minute chart frame here on our right. We're looking at a 15-minute chart frame on our left. Notice the intent blocks sit in exactly the same position. Also, notice how even though we're looking at a 60-minute, the whole process, the whole sequence of events plays out just the same. Nothing any different to what we've been looking at in the 15-minute. We can see here we have our intent. There we have our jump bar up, which literally clears out the entire area to the left. We had our intent block moving down. And what did we have? We had the genuine move on down. Now, of course, we don't quite see as many cycles in this because they're buried within the overall cycle. So we might say that sorry, let's just get the box on. So we might say that in this case is on the 60 minute is our overall cycle, our overall sequence of events, if you like. And just to give you an idea, let's have a look at the scale of movement on there. So we had getting on that's 90 pips, by the way, that range. So getting on for 90 pips really pretty much from top to bottom onto there. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that was just really to bring in the intent blocks and show you that and see exactly the same structure here. Again, don't get your mind hooked up on patterns here because it's structure that we're talking about. The market maker's business model, that's what we're looking to pick up on. Now, you remember me saying also that when you get a false intent, it is often, just get rid of this on there, it's often a great indication that the market is likely to go a significant way. So let's move off now to the right of this chart and have a look. Let's just zoom in a little bit and have a look at there. You can see how the market really gets right underway and kicks off. Now, again, what I want to do here is just quickly just get on the draw thing again so we can have a look, and I'm going to just do some drawings on here without talking so that you can sort of work this out for yourself. But first off, keep an eye on the floating zone 2, and what do we see? Are you getting these? This last one's not quite so clear. We definitely see these proceeding too. We've got accumulation. So if we've got accumulation here and we've got this here, which we now know is a false move, so we can anticipate a good significant move, what do we highly likely know that this area of accumulation contains? Correct? We know it contains accumulation of buys. Notice the complete absence of any countermanding, if you like, or any further indication of any intent block against this. And we see exactly the same again here. Now, also notice how the market comes back, drops back into this same area. So in other words, you can see how the market drops back into here and gives us very, very low risk buying opportunities. It comes right back in, barely into the top of this area here, not quite into the area there, but of course we're just looking for the jump bar up, and we can see that intrinsically we've got our underlying direction of the market, which is the most important element that we have. Okay, so let's just move on a little bit through there and have a little look further on. Now the reason this is going to be quite interesting here, because this area through here, now what we see through here is we get this downward move. So we've had the downward move through here. We'd be pretty much stopped out for excellent gains, obviously, on that long trade up there that we're just in previously. We see the accumulation area that we've got onto here, and we haven't really got any sort of down indicator much, or in any intent blocker, but of course at this stage we really are getting into the downtrend, but nevertheless we haven't really got something that's biting out and jumping on us there to get on that. But what we do see is we get this very, very tight, you can see all of these belief bars very, very tight as these are coming down within this channel. Now this is indicative of an accumulation that doesn't go through a flattened period. This will generally take place again prior to a very significant move. Now what we actually have after that is this real, we'll call it a violent market activity, because it's sort of racked, if you like, up and down through this period. And what this is doing here is literally clearing out all the stops, allowing the market makers to load up with pretty much everything they can at will. And like I say, pretty much taking out every stop and really working the market backwards and forwards through this period. Now, during this time, let's get those off of that. During this time, what do we see? We see our down intent block, which is very interesting. We say, okay, this market is likely or possibly now going to go down from this. Everything's looking towards that downside. But immediately, what happens is the next belief bar actually goes up. The next one goes up after that, and then we get a jump bar up, and then we get this green as well. So now the whole market intent has changed. Everything now is completely changed around. Now we're only looking to the long side, if you like, to looking for that market to go up. And notice incidentally that this last belief bar here is now above the high point of this intent block, again indicating that this is a complete reversal here. Now at this point, of course, we haven't got anything to the right of this point. We don't know how things are going to play out. Very important that once you're looking at PAT, you're actually doing this on live charts. You can see how this turns out in the live way, which is why I show the live trading, because I want you to see this in the real world. Okay, so what happens is the market then lifts up, starts to come back off down, and get rid of those markers and then get some fresh ones on. So we can see the market starts to come back down from here. So now traders are starting to think, yeah, this is now getting into a short position. It's getting down. It's all starting going down. It's over 15 minutes. So there's a good hour and a half time as the market comes off. So it's all sort of looking like it's starting to get down. And you're going to get this general continuation down that we see from here. But of course, we as PAT traders have got this. So we know very different. And what we're waiting for is that dramatic turn, and it comes here. We can see that once the market comes back down, tests into really pretty much, which is the accumulation area, and back into the green intent block, the market then quickly jumps up. You see the beliefs are quickly pushed up from here, and then the market settles off into an up move. What do we have later on? You can see that we get another accumulation area, which is absolutely beautiful for us. Why? Because we know we have already had this. And once we've got that, let's get rid of those and put those back on. So again, that's nice and clear for you. So we've got our accumulation area. We've got this as supporting evidence. So what are we going to be doing? We are only going to be trading one way. We're going to be going north with the market. You see, we get another one on the way up as well. We get another accumulation area here on the way as well. Again, we can take some profits here, or we can move our stop up to here, or we can go up, and then we get another area running through here as well. So let's just move off to the right now, get rid of those so we can see on that, and just carry on over onto the right. Oh, there we go. We're actually seeing the live price actually as we're talking now. So let's just get off. I'm going to turn the live price off so we're not distracted by that. And just shows we're pretty much not far off the live edge of the market, as it were. Okay, so we get through this period here. You can see the market just continues on up through this period, and then we get a bit of a green. Now this is Friday night here, so we get a bit of a messy data over the weekend, and this actual red intent block, you see it comes in just after the green. Although it's a little bit messy, nevertheless it came in, and the market indeed starts to go off down. I'm going to get that zoomed in a little bit so we can get a bit better information on there so we can see. So there we are. So all day Monday, this is all day Monday that we're looking through this period here. Let's get a look on. So this is all day through Monday right here, and we can see down through here we've got this general trend running off down here following that intent block. And what I'm going to do now is just get rid of that once more and just finish up on this section here. I'm going to call up a dealing platform so that you can see. There we go. And if you have a look at my dealing platform here, you will notice a price over here, the opening price here of 44.92. I wonder if I can actually get the drawing tool on there to see that. I probably can. There we go. 44.92. You can see my current stop position in there, and I will have to move that down. I haven't actually moved that down yet. And you can see my limit exit order there, which is on spot 43.02. And if you do a quick little maths, you'll work out that that's 147 pips. So I sold the market at 44.92. We'll have a look back on the other chart in a moment so we can see exactly where that is. And I'm expecting the market get around to around 43.02. Now I'll explain to you later on why I'm expecting that. Now I hasten to add, it doesn't matter if the market doesn't go down for the 43.02, because currently I'm just staying with the intent of the market, and currently the market's moving on down, so I'm just going to carry on making money. That's fine. But of course things may change, and if they change and I get an intent bar, a green intent bar, then of course I will adjust my position. I'll decide to take the profits at that point, or I'll move my stop down very tight at that point. I'll see how things play out. But until Pat actually tells me that the intent of the market is changing, then it makes complete logical sense to stay with that and keep on making money while you can keep on making money. So I'm going to get rid of that now and just go back over. So 44.49 was where it was, so it's to 59, and I believe I sold it, I'm going from memory here now, I'll just put a line on so we can say 49, so 44.49, there we go, 44.49, and I believe the time wise, I can't be exactly sure on this, I believe the time was around about here, at this point here where I sold the market, and I am obviously anticipating that to continue on down to my target exit, which was 147 odd pips from my original entry. Just briefly, as I finish up on this video, because I think this is getting a little bit long now, my target is going to be relative to an accumulation area that wasn't traded back to. In other words, you've seen areas where we've had accumulation and then the market comes back to, so I'm going to just show you that quickly actually while I can. I think that would be a good idea. Let's get that back on, go back to our frame. So whereas we had the accumulation area running through here, and you can see that the market then came back up into that area. Okay, so in other words, it traded back into that area through there, and then it went off from down on there. The difference is that when you have an accumulation area, and I'll try and show you one here that's not entirely true because it did come back to it a little bit, but I'll try and show you exactly what I mean. Where you have an area of accumulation like this and the market doesn't get back, in other words it doesn't come at it but continues on down, this will often be an excellent area for the market to trade back to, of course providing you've got your intent bars and everything else going back towards that way. So currently my exit around 147 pips is taking me back to one of these types of area that weren't traded back to at the time. Okay, we're going to bring this one to a close now, and I'll catch up